Okay, we are live. Assaf,
Hello, world.
Assaf Luxembourg, you have Mel. So first of all, tell us about your name. You know, not everybody gets to have a country named after him. What's going on here?
Yeah, so you're referring to the last name, which unlike my first name, the last name actually helped open some doors in my past. Um, so no connection to the Luxembourg royalty family. I have no castles in Europe. Just imaginary stories from my childhood, which are false. But that's it.
And I was thinking I was going to get an invite in this interview.
Yeah, no, so I am looking for Mr. Israel from Luxembourg. So if you're out there and you're listening, talk to me.
Okay, great. So we start our program by asking our interviewees whether they like the Beatles.
What would they like to what? Sorry?
Whether you like the Beatles.
So I respect the Beatles. I like the Beatles music, but I'm not a fan that knows the words and everything.
Okay, do you have a favorite Beatles song?
Yeah. What's the name of that song? If my guitar.
While my guitar gently weeps.
Yes, yes. Generally, I'm not the kind of person that likes bands or singers or artists. I like music. So I like songs of various people. I like pieces of various artists.
While my guitar gently weeps.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so now we can continue our interview now that we know what your taste in Beatles songs. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what happened that changed your life.
Okay, so other than the fact that my last name not connected to the country and the fact that you already know my most loved Beatles song, my name is Assaf Luxembourg. And I'm born and raised here in Israel. My passion in life is to promote my country, Israel, mainly through business and innovation and entrepreneurship. I did not want to start my own business. So my business was actually born out of a pain. So just to share people a little bit about my background and my story, because I guess it'll be part of the context for the conversation.
Assaf, this is the conversation.
Okay, great.
We're live now.
I know, but I want to keep it short.
No, keep it short.
So when I was 22, I discovered my biggest passion in life, which is to promote my country. It was clear to me that this is what I want to do. And I thought of, what way can I do it with? So I was looking to study the profession and work in the profession. And to me, the answer was obvious. Assaf, you want to promote your country, go be a diplomat, be an ambassador. So I studied in the right places. I worked in the right places. I invested most of my 20s building the right network, the right experience, so that by the time I will be 30, I will go and be an ambassador. And when I turned 30, I realized I'm not going to be an ambassador. So the old known, you plan, God laugh, you cry, that one. And I had a little bit of a 30-year-old career crisis, and I was looking for what way can I still pursue what I'm passionate about. And that's how my business was born, which is basically assafluxembourg.com. I have my own business, and I do three things. Number one, I promote Israel's tech innovation entrepreneurship around the world. I did a lot of things before COVID, so you can see a lot of that online. Worked with people from all over the world. So I was kind of able to become an ambassador on behalf of myself instead of my government, which if you ask me, it's better. But that's how I started my business. The second thing I do, I'm a marketing consultant. So I work with nonprofits, agents, startups, of course, and other kinds of companies, marketing, storytelling, business development, those kinds of things. The third thing I do started 3 years ago when I realized that a big way to connect people to my country, which is what I'm all about, is to inspire them and give them insights to the new world of work. So not how to be an entrepreneur by a profession, raise money, start a business, sell a business, not that, but how to think like an entrepreneur, even as an employee in the office. So I do a lot of that too. These are the three main things that I do in my business.
Okay, and how has the the virus pandemic impacted your work?
So this is an interesting year. I actually wrote a piece about it when COVID started, and I'm trying to stay true to stick to my truth. I believe that if you're able to think for the longer term, this period of time can actually be an opportunity. It's not an opportunity you can necessarily reap in the short term, but I believe that this is the time to really build relationships, to really to build a reputation, to build the right kind of a relationship with the right stakeholders, with the right companies you do want to run a marathon with, and to be very patient. If you can allow yourself to do that, I think that the day the hurricane will pass and the whole town is completely, devastated, we will start to rebuild town. So I'm a big believer in, plan for the day after and do what is necessary to survive and get there.
Okay, so now I have a question that I've been meaning to ask you ever since we met, which was 1 week ago. How do you differentiate between promoting Israel's technology and high tech and not being an apologist for Israeli politics?
Right. So I'm a student of someone by the name of Ido Haroni, who I need to give a lot of respect for. And he kind of showed me the light when I was young. So he's one of the people who I met when I was young, and they sent me on my way. So I don't necessarily agree with all of my country's politics, and I don't think all Americans with all American politics, nor I think that many, Japanese people agree with all Japanese politics. So I differentiate between the government and the country or the people, not just in the case of Israel, for any country or people. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I'm a big believer in building relationship. So a lot of people are interested in Israeli politics, but one of the things that I came to learn from, very smart people is that when you actually look at the numbers and you go to an average country and you ask people, on the case of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, who are you for? And 9% will be pro-Israel, 16% will be pro-Palestinian, which is maybe even twice. But doing the math, 9 plus 16 is 25, meaning 75% on that question, their answer is, I couldn't care less. And I agree with them, because we don't necessarily have an opinion with regards to the Tamilian tigers in Sri Lanka. So the question is, what can Israel bring to the table that is valuable, that puts the audience, the consumer, in the center? And Startup Nation, that whole brand of Israel as a mecca for tech and innovation and startups, is a great example for that, because 10, 12 years ago when that book came out, it was super relevant to the world. So the world cared. Those people who came here to look for opportunities as investors or business people or delegates from their corporations or whatever that is, they don't necessarily agree, and they didn't come here to support the Israeli politics, but it was relevant to them. And the question is, what can we bring to the world that is relevant? And I believe that is the key question.
Okay, so there's no doubt that Israel is a major player in the high-tech community worldwide, much beyond our size, our population. How do you explain the phenomenon of the Startup Nation beyond the book?
So again, 3 years ago, I kind of started having that revelation that story is still super relevant, but I'm actually much more interested in, going deeper than that level of the story. But since you asked,
that's why you're here.
Yeah. So adding to the already known cliches about Startup Nation, and cliches are cliches because they're true. I think there's another layer to this. Israel is very great in doing things small. Startups are small. We're not Ireland. We don't have HQs of big tech corporations. We have R&D centers. R&D centers are relatively small. Those corporations, they come here, the way they built their local presence is by acquiring local startups. These are companies that are small. Israel is a small country, and it exists for relatively not a lot of time. even in diaspora, 2,000 years of Jewish diaspora, Jewish communities were small. And even before that, in the Roman Empire, Judea was small. I think doing things small in non-industrial way, meaning less red tape, less legacy, more freedom of thought, I think is part of the DNA of modern Israel and ancient Israel and the people of Israel. That's one part of the answer. The other part, which is related, I think, to today's world of work and what a lot of people are facing individually with what's happening. I guess many of the listeners already know about one of my rabbis, Simon Sinek, who taught us to start with why, put the why in the center and the what and the how around it. The way I look at
a few people have seen that presentation.
Yeah, only a few. And if you're not one of them, stop this video right now, go to YouTube, look for Simon Sinek, start with why, and then come back and watch this later. So Simon taught us to put the why in the center. And I think Israel is a great example for that, because when you ask Israelis, generally speaking, why does Israel exist? There's a very clear why. And that why is not necessarily a random set of individuals who just wanted to live together and maximize personal liberty, which is great, but that's, to me, is a what and how. It's not a why. So when you have a core why that defines who you are, and that is true for your country, for your company, for your town, for your own career, when you have a clear why and you make that the constant in the equation, you allow for the what and the why to play loose and adjust to the market. And most people are not like that. They define what they do and why and how they do it. So they have to reinvent their why. And that is not a good way, according to Rabbi Simon Sinek, to building a long-lasting career path. So I think Israel is good at that. There's a strong sense of togetherness and a higher sense of purpose because of that why. Doesn't mean we figured out the what and the how, but we do have a very clear why.
So are you advocating to our startup youngsters start small and stay small?
Well, I'm joining a lot of others who wish to remind a lot of startup entrepreneurs that the idea is not to build a startup, the idea is to build a company. And the company over time wants to live off of sales and customers, not investors. So the aim is not to fundraise, is to sell a product. So maybe a good idea would be to start. I'm one of those as a marketing consultant when I work with startups that advises as much as I can to go and speak with the customers even before the investors. If you can build your product together with your market and together with your customers and you make them part of the journey, it's the best way to do it.
So Assaf, maybe this is the reason.
Sorry?
Because Israel, you talked about small, but we're small also in a sense of your customers here often live around the corner. You see them in the grocery store. So
yeah, so Israel has that, third degree or sixth degree of separation or something like that. Yeah,
I mean, if you drive four hours from here, you're in another country.
Yeah, which is why they say,
or the sea, right?
Yeah, which is why they say the Israeli Air Force are the best in the world in turning. But
that's right.
Yeah, Israel is small, but the physical size, adds to the culture and the business culture and the mindset. But again, I'm trying to hit deeper layers because, China is not going to be small. Other countries are not going to be small. But there are some lessons from our story that I think are universal, not because we're so smart and we figured it out, just because of the circumstances and the history. And if we can share those values and those lessons, then why not?
Okay, so let's compare. Let's compare two companies, two Israeli companies. They begin with W. Let's say Wix and Waze for two companies. Both have done rather well. Wix pivoted, but early on they realized that they had to build a paying customer base, and Waze didn't. Waze did stuff for free, praying that somebody would want what they were doing.
So again, very different markets, very
good thing they didn't listen to us.
Yeah. So again, obviously, God is in details, and very different two companies, very different markets, very different startup routes. I don't know how many people know that Wix actually started as a whole, as you said, as a whole different company, and they abandoned everything and went to the investors and said, you know what, we want to do this website platform instead.
Yeah, but they were very customer driven.
Right. Waze actually started as a nonprofit, if I remember correctly. They were just a community of map lovers.
Yeah, nobody really knows how they
Yeah.
started. It's a secret.
You need to ask Uri Levine about that.
He won't tell me.
But I think I heard it once that that's how they actually started.
There's all kinds of legends.
Yeah, but here's what I would say. Two very different companies, but I would say very clear whys. By the way, their fate ended differently. One was sold to Google, the other became a big company. So again, it's all about the why do we exist. I would say, who do we serve and why do we serve them? That's a question I answer to myself every day. And I think a lot of startup entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs, even if you're a graphic designer or you're starting your own online e-commerce business, my intuition is, again, to start with, who do I want to serve and why? Because if I will know to tell them that before I even have something to offer to them, I can start building trust. And my experience so far taught me that the more than people want experts, people want trusted advisors. So I'm a very service-driven person. I don't believe there's such a thing as just products. There's always a layer of service.
But Assaf, your business is bringing groups to Israel, connecting people, giving advice. You've already given me some terrific advice, and basically that's not scalable.
Right. And I'm not looking to scale it. My purpose is, my why is to promote Israel the best way I can. I thought I'm going to work for the government. I ended up starting my own business, but I have zero idea how I'm going to do what I do 10 years from now. I don't know. I know why.
How about 5 years from now?
I hope to have a better sense, but still, who knows? I mean, this year taught us to really let go of, the what and the how and care about the why. I don't know, maybe I'll be hired somewhere. I hope to lead an organization in the future, not necessarily be my personal business. My business doesn't exist because I wanted to be my own boss. I wanted to work for the government.
So your why is very clear.
Right. And maybe I'm some sort of an outlier to most people, but
in one sentence, Assaf's why is?
In one sentence, my why is to show that my country is relevant to as many people as possible in as many ways as possible. I mainly do it through business and entrepreneurship and tech and career advice, but there are 10,000 other ways. I don't know which, where I'll be in the future.
So my why then would be helping people tell their stories while I'm telling my own?
Maybe. To me, that's part of the how. So I help people with marketing strategy and storytelling.
But when I talk to you now, I don't know my why anymore. I thought I had a why. I'm not sure I have a why.
So again, it's very hard. It's very easy to get lost in these circles, but I believe every once in a while, we need to question our whys. And again, that's all Simon Sinek. People tend to fall in love with the what and the how because they're tangible. So to me, that's a false god. So I use a lot of biblical examples when I do things because of my why. It's Jewish heritage and it's part of what we have to offer to the world.
And why shouldn't you use biblical examples?
Sorry?
Why shouldn't you use biblical examples?
No, it's a great way for me.
I do it all the time when I'm teaching storytelling. Whether you're religious or not, the Bible has the best stories ever.
Of course.
What's your favorite story?
Of course.
What's your favorite story from the early ones?
Oof, there are many. So in terms of biblical examples, the Exodus is an epic entrepreneurial story, especially when you actually look at Moses as an entrepreneur in wide open eyes and critical eyes, which I highly advise to do. And whoever wants it, it's online somewhere, that video of mine talking about it. In terms of biblical story is, look, I'm a sucker for Second Temple days because I think it's the most interesting historical period that is closer to ours. If you take away technology, it was a global world with one culture that kind of span out across the known world, which was mainly the Mediterranean. And we were just the edge of the empire. So trade, open borders, cultures, intersect. Very, very interesting to look at that period. Roman times, some will call it the days of Jesus. We call it Second Temple times. Very interesting to look at that period and compare it to our days and day and age.
Oh, that's incredible, because I go back to Abraham. My favorite stories are from way back when. These Chalcolithic stories, the sacrifice of Isaac. Wow.
Cool.
So, Assaf, what would you like to talk about now? What bothers you? What needs to be fixed? What do you need to tell young people?
So 3 years ago, so I built my business because I was in the right place and in the right time when the brand Startup Nation was built from the book, basically. 3 years ago, I understood that young people don't necessarily interpret the word entrepreneurship the same way my generation is. I'm 35, so it's not like I'm 50 something, but that decade brought a change. And for many people today, being an entrepreneur is some sort of a mix of starting my own freelance business. Freelancing became the new entrepreneur, maybe be involved in a startup as well, but not necessarily devote all my years to building a company and then sell it in the technology sector, which is what it was when I was 20 plus epsilon, because everybody wanted to be Mark Zuckerberg. So I started taking lessons from the world of entrepreneurship and startups and trying to translate them to the world of career building in today's new world of work, where we switch jobs every 2 years and everything that many of the audience knows and feels every day. And then I understood that the Bible, which is the most entrepreneurial book ever, has so many lessons that are practical and pragmatic for everyday life. So I started combining the three together with lessons from modern Israel, because that's my thing, that's my why. And I started sharing insights. Not because I'm a big coach that figured it out. I'm another Bedouin in the desert. So
give us I love this now. Give us another example or a specific example of those.
Right. So first of all, it's all online. You can find much of it on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or in my website. You will not find it on website. You may find it on Facebook, but not for me because I'm not on Facebook, which is where this is live right now. And
it'll also be on YouTube.
If you watch it on YouTube, better, that's great. If you watch it on later. So the punchline that I reached, the tachlis, the core that I understood, that in a way in today's world, even if you're a paid employee, you need to think as if you're the CEO and owner of You Incorporated.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, so I guess that's something you can relate to, but I think you would also agree that maybe 20 years ago, it was a great mindset to have, but you didn't need it to survive. It was crucial to thrive, but not necessarily to survive.
Yeah.
What happens today because of the internet and the way the world of work changing, I think it becomes imperative to survive. Because if I switch jobs every 2 years, depending on what's available, and I don't find myself, it'll be very hard to define a why for myself. And if I think of myself as a business, then practically speaking, even if I'm a paid employee, I am a business with one customer. It means that my boss is my customer. And if I can look at my boss as a customer, I think if you can do that, I think you're much more fit to thrive in this new world of work.
No, I agree with you. I tell my students that they have become the CEOs of their own life.
So that's exactly, you're speaking the word, you're putting the words out of my mouth. So
yeah, but here's the thing. See, entrepreneurs, we call them startupisti, right? They want to scale. I think that's the difference between the freelance community and the entrepreneurs want to scale. They want to do something where it's not just me giving advice or teaching, it's building a whole website with 10,000 teachers.
Right. So again, Scaling is what and how. And of course, everybody wants to be bigger. But the reason we talk about scale, I believe, is because the startup mania that happened here in the last 20 years all over the world, which is a phase in the technology revolution. It's a phase. There was a time that going to the wild, wild west and looking for gold was the thing. But 100 years later, it was not the thing anymore. Interestingly enough, most of those cowboys never bothered to study geology, but they believe they can make it. So again, it's a phase in the technology and the information revolution. But that phase taught us to talk about scales, because when you talk about startups, which are really binary businesses, it's scale or die, fundraise or die, IPO or die, sell to Google or die, then of course you want to do these things because otherwise you die. But generally speaking, businesses don't scale or die. Most businesses grow linear. And even big tech, I mean, Wix post IPO, they need to live off of sales. So it becomes linear in terms of the growth, or at least it becomes ratzif, so it becomes fluent. It's not binary. It's not, fundraise or die, exit or die.
So it's a steady.
That's why we talk about scale.
Yeah, no, but this is very interesting because your business doesn't scale. So you're teaching. One second, you're teaching young entrepreneurs to do something that you've decided not to do because you've discovered your why. Maybe if they discover their why, they won't do what they're doing. And this brings me to my next question, which is why do we teach young people to become entrepreneurs when we know that 99% of them are going to fail? They're going to die, as you say.
I completely agree with you, which is why I think entrepreneurship may be a profession for some, but it's a skill set for others. And I think everyone will need it. I mean, the accountant at Ernst & Young needs it. The lawyer at whatever firm with Mike Ross and Harvey Specter, she needs it. In today's world of work, where everything is on demand, you need to adjust to the market because markets are changing quickly because of, technology. It's a mindset you need to have. And we turned entrepreneurship into a profession, meaning it's like, either you do it or you don't do it. No, it's a mindset. And I believe building a business which fits your why and makes you happy and you make good money out of it, the fact that you don't scale from year to year, 4x, doesn't mean you're failing. I see a lot of young people that to them, building an online business is what they want to do. That's not scalable. That's not a startup. It's linear growth business. And it's much more attractive to them than try to start an app, take an office at WeWork, fundraise $200,000, gather a lot of users, and then try to think of a business model. So I think it's a phase. It's not going to go away, but it's not the only way to be an entrepreneur. Starting a business is not the only way to be an entrepreneur. Today you have a new term. It's called intrapreneurs. These are people who are entrepreneurs inside their firms. A lot of people say, another shtick of, the entrepreneurship culture. But in a way, if you understand that entrepreneurship is a skill set or a mindset, then absolutely you could have people who are paid employees and they have entrepreneurial skills or traits.
Yes, in which case, the really good ones are going to leave the company. So
maybe yes and maybe no. So, I have an open debate in my mind about that. I'll share with you.
Yeah, go ahead, because this is something that I think about often, that the people who are innovative shouldn't be in big companies to start with.
I agree. So here's an example I find myself, talk about, a lot of people with. So imagine there's Simone, okay? And Simone works at the big corporation on the 15th floor in the financial department. Now, Simone found her why. You know what's her why? She loves baking. So the dogmatic point of view would say you need to quit and start a bakery because you're good in baking. But here's the problem. You're going to take an enormous amount of risk. And even if you succeed, you know what you will have less and less time to do once you own a bakery? bake. Now, maybe a better way to reach an equilibrium that combines what you love, what you're good at, and what the market appreciates, that trio would be to go to your boss and say, I love this job and I'm good at it. And, here's a news flash. For me, it's not up or out. I don't need to become VP finance or I quit next year. So you don't need to make a bullshit promotion for me. There is no pressure. You know what? I want to go down to 80% position and I want to sell cakes in my neighborhood twice a week in the afternoon. And you know what? Next time we have a big event in this firm, I would love to help with the event planning, especially with, the desserts. Now, if you think in the new world of work terms, meaning both the employee and the boss, or the business woman and the customer, I think you can reach a great agreement because the boss wants people to stay around and not, leave every year and a half. And it's just realigning expectations and aligning interests. So, Superman, if you think about Superman was Clark Kent most of the time. The reporter in the news system. If he was trying to make a living being Superman all day long, he would be poor because he's trying to fight the police. It's the police job to do it. So to me, that's another way of thinking yourself like a business. I have an 80% this, a 20% that. It's a business owner mindset.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that you should write a book.
Started posting on my blog 3 years ago.
How to succeed like Superman.
I don't know.
Forget about the second temple. This is better. I like it better. How to succeed like Superman.
Maybe. Look, you're speaking to someone who talks, I speak to a lot of people about how to think like an entrepreneur. And then people ask me and I tell them, listen, if the stars are aligned 5 years from now, maybe I'm shutting down my business. I'm shooting down my own horse. And I go and work for that organization because it better suits my why.
Yeah, but maybe you should forget about Moses and go with Superman now.
And maybe I like those analogies too. It just so happens that every time I go back to our heritage, I find so much of it. Not just Jewish heritage.
Yeah, look, I'm sure that the Jews started Superman. I haven't checked it, but
I don't know. I'm not, but maybe.
Okay, but we'll check this out. But I want to go back to the Superman of modern times. One of the superheroes in quotations, which is Mr. Zuckerberg. You don't seem to like him very much. He's a Jewish boy.
I like him a lot.
He had a bar mitzvah. You don't like his product very much.
Meaning, Facebook. Yeah, well, so again.
Yeah, 1 second. You're a high-tech guy. You're connected all over the world.
Right.
You're a super blogger, super Mr. LinkedIn. And you left Facebook 1 year before I joined Facebook. Right. What's going on?
So for those who don't know, maybe the one is, I'm not, actually know a few other Israelis who are not on Facebook. So we're like a secret cult. And we talk every now and then, but not on Facebook. So we don't have a Facebook group.
You have an incognito Facebook group.
No, I found, I figure I saw Facebook first time in 2008 when I was at the ROI Summit by the Schusterman Foundation. I saw that thing. It was amazing. I joined Facebook. A year and a half later, I closed Facebook. To me, it was because I didn't want people to reach out. I didn't want people to reach out to me personally about my career stuff and people from the career side to see things from my personal life. So to me, it was important to separate the two way before it was a thing culturally to think about that. Not because I saw the light, but because it was me. So when I started getting a lot of things that are related to my fields of interest professionally on my Facebook, I said, not for me. I discovered LinkedIn, and LinkedIn was big for me. I'm not saying that Facebook is wrong, LinkedIn is good. It's a matter of taste, of course. But I built my business on LinkedIn. So to me, LinkedIn is home. But it's interesting, it's part of what we're talking about. The way I see it, social media platforms are just a mirror for real life gatherings. Facebook is your Saturday or Sunday or Friday or Saturday or Sunday evening barbecue with friends. And LinkedIn is a business conference. And it's just interesting to me. I see people behave in the barbecue event as if they're in a business conference. They come with a suit and tie and they hand out business cards. And it's like, not the right place to do it. And I see people in a business conference, AKA LinkedIn, coming in talking about, things in a way that kind of fits the barbecue. And I think it's because these platforms are still relatively new, historically speaking.
But Assaf, you're saying something very interesting here, because we are now being required to work more from the home. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting here talking to you, and one of my kids or a grandchild comes and jumps on my lap. My kids are big; they're not going to jump on my lap right now. Our homes have become our offices, and our private lives have become our public lives. Our public lives have become our private lives. We're branding ourselves, and you as a marketing expert who just said 10 minutes ago that we have to be our own CEOs and reinvent ourselves, you have a demarcation between your private life and your professional life, which is interesting.
Excellent analysis. So again, there is no absolute right or wrong. For some people, it may be to just put themselves out there, and it may be their, intimate, personal self that will drive the persona that they want to show to the world, businessly speaking. To me, it was a little bit different. So I talk about a lot of things as part of the public me, but you will not see photos of my kids online. You will not necessarily know where I was, during the weekend. Not because I think it's such a big secret and people shouldn't show that online. It's because I chose to be that way, because I wanted to be aligned with the messages I promote. So when you think Assaf Luxembourg, you think about promoting Israel, helping young professionals, think like a business, marketing consultant, these things. Not necessarily the person who loves that song of the Beatles.
Yeah, so, but let me show you the other side of it. Okay, anytime you wander around Israel with your family by yourself, sometimes don't you stop and say, "Hey, I'm in the Valley of Elah now, where David fought Goliath, and where the sun stood still." Or here, I'm in the Negev. The Nabateans lived over there, and Jerusalem. And don't you want to take a selfie and say, "Here, look, here I am on Via Dolorosa"?
If it's related to my business, maybe. If it's personally, maybe not. Depends. Look, I actually, when I travel around, I don't know, let's say I go to Tel Aviv for meetings, and I see like this new glassy tower that sits on top of an old building, or when I see that in other places around. So, to me, that plays with old and new, right? So you would have, it's something that is very common in Israel. You will have like an old building that they wanted to preserve, and you see like a tower, like in nature, that you see like an old plant and a new plant rising, right from it. And to me, like that's the perfect visualization of old and new, which is actually the name Tel Aviv. And it's actually the name of the book, Alt Neuland, that Herzl wrote. And old and new is maybe one of the key motives in the story of
Alon Sasson was on the show 2 days ago talking about Herzl and Alt Neuland. Did you watch that or not?
No, but to me,
it's incredible.
But to me, it all connects. So when I go and I see that building, I'll take a photo, I'll share it on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll say, what an example to visualize like old and new, or old and new, old meets new in Tel Aviv in Israel, or something like that.
So listen.
But I wouldn't show a photo of me and the kids, the beach or something like that.
Okay, our time is at an end here, and this is incredible because I have a feeling that we have to talk more about this, because what I do is I share my love of my life here. I try not to tell people you should live here, you should love this, you should love that, but rather through the things I love. So I don't show that many pictures of my kids because they don't allow it. at least my daughter not. But I want you to consider this because you live here. And the moment you walk outside, it's the same weather that we had 3,000 years ago, and it's the same stars, the same constellations that Abraham and Moses saw. And I find that rather spooky in my life. So I share that kind of inspiration that I get here.
I totally agree. And from that perspective, like if you feel like you do share it with the world, I'm just sharing, you know, again, Bedouins speaking to other Bedouins in the desert. You don't have to distinguish between personal and professional, and you don't have to share your personal life to build an authentic brand and show your true self to the world. As Gary Vee says, there are many CEOs of many companies around the world who run great businesses and you don't know a goddamn thing about who they are. It's okay. Or the way he says it, like, what do you know about the CEO of Nike? Nothing. So you don't have to do it.
I can tell you which tennis shoes he wears.
Yeah, I bet. But you don't have to do it for a rational reason. My big thing is you need to understand that if you think of yourself like a business, then the way to run your personal life as your personal life, it doesn't contradict with your business goals because your business is you personally. And if I already mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk, you know, the first book he wrote, which was The Thank You Economy, I think he nailed it right. I think it was even at the intro. It's not even the book. It's in the introduction where he said, the internet is bringing back to basic, like before the industrial era. When you were the kid in the small town in Marrakesh or in Poland or wherever you were around the world, and you know, you walked around the marketplace and you saw the blacksmith and you said, wow, that's cool. So you hung around his shop and you wanted to learn from him. So you offered him to work for free. So in the beginning, you cleaned the back and then he showed you a little bit. And that's how you learned the profession. You did an internship. There was no study the profession, work in the profession, you got a certificate. Now you need to be a good person. If you were a great blacksmith as a talent, but you were a shitty human being at town, nobody would buy from you. And I think the internet is bringing those truths back to basic. So to sum up, because I think we're a little, you know, you mentioned we're running out of time. I think one of the biggest things that I advise people to think about is, A, how can I really think of myself as a business? What is my business strategy and what is the end game? Mm-hmm. Number one, like what's the business plan for you in life? Number two, understand that entrepreneurship is not a profession. It could be, but it's more than a trait or a set of qualities or a state of mind, which could be nurtured. And number three, in the sentence, if you want to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. So dig in deep and go way back to figure out where you want to be far ahead. And I'm offering my perspectives on it for those who are following.
Yeah, so you're welcome to find Assaf on the internet, better on LinkedIn than on Facebook. He has special insights, and I hope this is the continuation of a beautiful relationship. I certainly am going to pour myself something and start to ask myself the question, why am I doing this show? Why am I doing our books? I think these are really good questions that you've raised. But I want you also to think about the other thing. Why have I, Assaf Luxembourg, made this distinct demarcation between my private me and my public me? This is worth talking about.
And maybe I will change my mind tomorrow. Who knows?
Well, you know, you've got Mel. And today I had Assaf.
I'm sure be happy to knock on your Zoom and ask for a consultation.
Thank you. So this has been wonderful, and we'll take it all offline now. Thank you very much, Assaf.
I really want to thank the 2.5 people or 2.5 million people who are watching this. And I hope we were able to add some value to the table.
Well, you know, it all depends on you. Sometimes there's 300 and sometimes there's more than 1,000.
I enjoyed the conversation, even if it's 0.
Exactly. Anyway, it was wonderful talking to you. And we'll talk later.
Keep up the great work. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
You too, my friend. You too.